Um, great. Well, I wanted to open it up to any more questions. I know we've had a really good interactive group here, so I appreciate all of the questions thus far. Is there any? Because I know we've got some new farmers potentially out in the crowd here tonight. Anything that you wanted to ask our panelists here, or online if anyone wants to speak up as well?
Throw an advertisement in here.
Absolutely, love that. Lucia Farms.
Well, I'm going to retire from the hay business. Got 800 acres of hay. I could see that becoming hemp, but I'm going to retire. So maybe somebody would want to rent 800 acres and do hemp. Come see me.
I can think of a few people.
Hay ground's good ground for hemp.
Yeah, that's a good point. So ideal. Sorry, go ahead.
Jeff raised his hand.
Oh, sure. Let's see. Jeff, go ahead.
Can you hear me all right there, Jarett?
We can, yeah. Hey, Jeff, good to see you.
Right on, cool. Thanks. Great program. Congrats to your growers and processor there. Just a little intro and a little bit of an ad also. So I'm Jeff Koschik. I'm the general manager of a seed company up here in Canada called Verve Seed Solutions, and met Jarett and Kelly actually at NOCO last year. Been in the hemp game since 1998, and up here in Canada, it's mostly been the grain side of things. So I feel I can speak to that aspect quite a bit more, but we're slowly getting into a little bit more on the fiber. We've got a massive actual processor up in Alberta now, looking at about 20,000 acres. And so the fiber game is going to come much more prominent in Canada, just as it builds in the US also. But anyway, would love to get on the program sometimes too. I had a lot of answers, or at least not answers, but the Canadian experience to some of the questions that have been going on. So really applaud you guys. It's the school of hard knocks. I've been there experiencing it. If you check out my LinkedIn profile, you'll see me in the back of my combine this year, pulling the hemp fiber off of out of the back of a Lexington combine. So I mean, it's a challenging crop. We need these sort of interactive and collaborative effort on farmers' behalf to, sort of shortcut or at least make everyone aware of what some of the challenges are and the opportunities, of course, also. But really, just wanted to applaud you again. And if anybody has any questions, Jarett has my contact. But yeah, would love to get on the next show or whatever, and perhaps could shed light on some of the issues that you guys have been talking about, because we're separated by that imaginary line, but we're brothers in trying to raise this crop profitably and successfully for everybody. So would love to share my experiences with you guys too, and much of them are the same, and perhaps we have maybe a few shortcuts that could help your growers along the way too. So anyway, appreciate the time and the effort you guys put into putting this on. Bravo.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jeff. And yes, we'd love to have you as a panelist. Actually, so that brings up a good point. We're going to do 6 of these. So this is the first one of 6. We're going to take this through March of 2024. Our next focus will be on the grain side. So we are going to, so there's no one that knows grain better than Jeff. I mean, he's been a wealth of knowledge for us. We actually grew one of his varieties up on the top of the field here at Kifcure this year. So we're going to do grain the next one. We're doing them the 3rd Wednesday of every month. In December, we will focus on the cannabinoid side of the house, and then we'll repeat it. So January will be fiber, February will be grain, March will be CBD again. So just to give everyone kind of a snapshot of what our agenda is there. Any other questions or?
Hey, Jarett. Yeah, this is Philip Alberti, University of Wisconsin, Madison. Again, it's been a great program. I appreciate you putting these on, and I just really appreciated Mike and Jesse's comments today. I a couple times wanted to unmute myself and provide some opinions in there. They were given some great information. So just really thankful for the call today. I did want to talk a little bit, though, Mike, you had mentioned before some questions had got asked about your grain harvest and the challenges that you had with that. You mentioned Futura 83. That's a great, fiber variety. We've had that in our trials quite a few years. It's a prolific producer for us. Got about 2-3 tons off it this year as a dual purpose crop, but it was, 10, 11 feet tall. I was wondering if you were referring to your harvest, trying to harvest a higher, taller crop like that. And I say that because in our trials too, we have quite a few grain varieties that are about 5-6 feet tall that are much more amenable to a draper head running through. So just, can you talk a little bit about your grain harvest experience, what those challenges were? And you were mentioning just some of the issues you were having. So I just want to hear your experience about that.
Yeah, so the application that we were on, which was up in Minnesota, was not Futura 83, and we have not been on any grain production on Futura 83. So that product, I have it written down. I should have brought it with me. That was being produced there, but it was similarly in the, I'll just say, the 6 to 7 foot range. And the real issue for us with cutting, they successfully pulled the grain off. They had some challenges, but they switched to skinny tires on their combine just to, get less down product. So for them, I know, not my personal experience, but for them, that created, had to run a little bit slower. They're running on the pivot fields. They ran a tire off of a rim. So there just had to be a little more cautious to try to, as they were trying to save some crop. They did have some, it took them some time. They ran like I said, a 40-foot draper head. What we found in cutting, aside from, wherever the combine wheel, rows were that got knocked down, our cutter is really unable to pick those up and adequately get that standing back up and cut for them. But the real challenge was what I would say, our cutter is 9.5 feet wide. So ultimate cutting, we get about 9 feet per swath. So we would get 3 good cuts, and then we get behind where the combine was, and we get 1 to 2, 1.5, 2 cuts where we had to raise our cutters up because that chaff was sitting in the, and I brought a sample of it. In fact, Jarett can, I'll show it to everybody. Yeah. But so that chaff was sitting in the, I'll say anywhere between 6 foot and 2 foot. And on any sycamore, it's, I would equate it to throwing a net at a propeller. It is immediately wants to clog up. So that's one of the problems we saw. And so it's, as we move forward, I think it's going to have to be a one pass type of option. They also ran a swather through it. Had to get through it twice, very slow, but just the experiences that we had from a cutting only standpoint after we saw that. But this was ultimately the product. I'll have this out here for everybody, but this is what came out the tail end of the combine, and it was really a challenge to cut through. So.
Yeah. And as I've kind of uncovered some of the discussions that I've had with some other folks that have done grain this year, it seems like there is going to need to be, or there is some equipment that's being worked on that's that one pass through, and you're getting both your grain heads and you're able to cut. So and even on the tri-crop too, I've heard some of that with some of these varieties. You can get some CBD content out of some of these different varieties. So doing a tri-crop where you get CBD, grain, and fiber is, I think, something that we will see in future years as genetics kind of keep up and the equipment to harvest it moves along.
I make one note that on that fields that we were on, their A plan was a one pass machine that came out of Europe, and it was on site, and they didn't get much past an acre or two in their process before it was ineffective. I can't explain, and I'm not here to advocate or not advocate, because I'd want nothing more than for that machine to be viable, because it would be meaningful to what we're trying to do. But we basically got the call because their A plan didn't pan out with which was basically a draper head with a Kemper swather underneath it. So they were attempting to do a one pass, and at least with the equipment that they had, they were unsuccessful with it.
So if you're gonna take the grain and then try to do the fiber, you probably want a shorter plant.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think that's, yep. And then you got to,
chaff.
and at least, a conversation that has been alive between our group is, then you start, you may get a good grain crop, but you're going to get a marginal fiber crop potentially. And for the asset need to harvest that grain, is it worth it to, get the same maybe revenue on a fiber only? But like I said, I think none of us would like more than to see something that could actually do that and get pulled a one pass machine.
So
So
Mike, is anybody successfully cutting hemp fiber with a disc bind or disc type traditional newer style, non-sickle bar, hayhorn, or 3-tier, 4-tier like yours?
I personally haven't been on site for anybody to see it myself, but I think there are people that are successfully doing it with some.
See, I don't know how many tiers you'd want, but if you were taking the grain and you plug up a sickle bar just by spitting on it.
Yeah.
And if you had a series of levels of the turtles with the
Yes.
every one of those are, I'm sure.
Mhm.
That would cut right. They don't make them or
I think you burn it up. I think you're burying, yeah, I mean, so the fiber in here on those discs, right? It gets in, it's not like sorghum, where it'll break, this just won't break. And so when you get it in to the turtle at the bearing where you where you put the shaft through, if it gets in there, man, it's game over.
yeah, that would wrap pretty quick with it.
Yeah, so I mean, there's guys that have done it. I feel that like Heiler, I know Heiler out of Belgium, I think it is. They're doing like a combine style approach, but even on their setup, it is a sickle bar basically mounted at the bottom of the combine, and then they have a whole separator and everything. But if you're looking for something that's larger and possibly has some greater throughput, that Heiler is definitely one. It's just wildly expensive.
Great. Any more questions from the audience or online? Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Mike and
Thank
Jesse,
you.
our panel, everyone here in attendance and online. We do have some appetizers and drinks for anyone who wants to stick around, have a drink or two, and network. And like I said, we'll put out some more communications about future events. And appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
Good job.